All right, welcome back to class assignment number 10. This is part 2, and we are finishing our kind of flush to one side cone. So I just finished up part 1 showing you how the information from the top view it does match what's going on in the front view, and the way I manipulated my front view, I don't even need to draw a top view. So that was just the last half of that part 1 video was just kind of proving a point and trying to make a connection, because this does look different down in how I've used my orientation lines in my reference circle there. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off now. That was just supplementary information. If you just got to this point, that's all you really need to be drawing so far. I just explained why these look different. So now at this point, we can kind of proceed to develop it like we have our the cone before this, just our nice equal taper cone. So to do that, what we've got is we just want to spin some arcs here, and I think I think I used maybe a magenta color last time. I'll go ahead and get rid of my layers. Yeah, and so the first arcs we want to take is now we've got all this information that is not part of my pattern, so I need to kind of like. But it's just it's a nice base point, this apex point, to develop the pattern, and then I can kind of take out the sections that I need, and I'll show you how to do that. It's kind of a grid system, and this is also where it kind of changes from the last cone. But we started the cone the same way here, where we pulled a circle here that was going to be the overall length here from the apex point. That's kind of like the widest part of my pattern, and then we pulled another one from this part of the pattern here. Yep. And so I've kind of defined this area that the pattern kind of exists, and that's on point 7. That's kind of orientation line 7. And so and that was kind of where we worked on the last pattern, and then we drew a new line out here, just an arbitrary line out here floating in nowhere, that we were able to pick out our circumference of the base and then draw it back to the apex, and it would kind of lock in the top of this cone too, just kind of working within this space. Well, we've just got a little bit more going on here, so it's not quite as simple as that. Those are the first 2 lines, and they only really relate to orientation line 7. So now what I need to do is pull a bunch more arcs that relate to all these other points on the base here. And so what it looks like then is, keep getting emails on my videos. What it looks like is I'm going to pick a new color. I'll go to this one now and repeat this. So I'm just going to come to the next point, which is point 6 here. And so it kind of moves in on the base point there, and then as if the magenta one's kind of the furthest out one here, it does a little bit different here, where point 6 here is this one, the next set of lines in. So when I zoom out here a little bit, you get this this kind of staggering set of, it's going to build a grid system, kind of top and bottom, for this pattern. And so that's point 6. I'm going to just pick another new color here. I can just use maybe an orange is fine, in a little bit. Orange circle, and this is going to be point 5, where 5 meets the base of my, and this is what's kind of locking in where the actual part lies from the apex. This is orientation line 5 here. So I snap that in. I'm going to repeat that with another color. We'll just go, we'll go dark blue here for point 4. So point 4 is right here on the upper circle. I'll do my lower circle first, it's fine. Let's try to stick with my program here. And then point 4 is this one right here. If I just work from one side to the other, it makes it so it's harder for me to mess up. I'll change colors again. What do I've got? Oh, the next one's kind of I'll just use yellow. It's my center. It's my kind of my base center line, even though that kind of changes. Like anyway, not real critical, but I already see I have a yellow orientation line, so I'll just go ahead and use that color there now. That's going to be 0.3 actually, right there, just by the way that lies. And let's do the upper part of my pattern. Right there. So if I grab the right, yeah. And I've got two more. I can go ahead and use I can use a white one too. This will be set to orientation line and the upper and the lower. So I get this crazy ring pattern. And all I really need is just a section of this pie, right? I'm just going to take a pie out of that. I get the whole 360-degree pattern, but I only need the circumference of what I'm actually drawing. So the last one I need is 0.1. I need to make sure it has its own. And it should be kind of just a straight up and down line here. So here's 0.1. It's the last one to draw. I'll just do it with green and the upper section. So the apex gets a lot going on at the apex. It can be easy to crisscross lines up there. So just try to keep them all going to the same point. And then you get this this crazy psychedelic kaleidoscope. But what we're going to do with this now is we're going to define where our pattern is. So the way I start that now is I just grab a starting line, and it can be anywhere here. I need to go to the apex, and I'm just gonna take a pie out of this. So I have some like gripped to degrees. It doesn't have to go. It can go in any point here and stretch back. What I'm just looking to do is the farthest magenta line. I could start my pattern here. Sometimes I just come away a little bit, and I'll start my pattern like right there. So this is all dead space in between my actual object line and where I started that. This is all just dead space. This is going to be where I start my pattern here, this center, and then I want the circumference of the lower diameter along the most outside edge here. So the way I like to do that is I discussed a few ways. Like the old trick was just to set a compass from 1 to 2 and then step that off 12 times, from this point over there, which I showed can lead to some inaccuracies. And so let's just I could set my compass to the actual, the circle divided by 12. And so what I've kind of just pulled up here is that just some reference lines here or some reference dimensions. I just did this ahead of time that I'm gonna step off kind of the outside or the bigger diameter and just take everything to the apex point, which will lock in the smaller diameter. So I'm going to take this circumference of the 8 5/8 is 27.09, just about 27 and 3/30 seconds. So let's take that and divide that by 12, 27.0963, 27.0963. I'll pull up my calculator. So I got my 27.0963 is the circumference of the outer, the bigger diameter. I'm going to divide that by 12. That's my node points I'll relate to the division of 12. So let's go divide that by 12. That'll give me an accurate circle. Is that correct? Yeah. 27.0963. Oh yeah, that looks right. I was going to say, I thought it was 2 1/4. I'd done this drawing before, and so when that pulled up a different number, I had to double check it. 2 1/4 would be my bigger diameter divided by 12, how I divided the node points to get equal spacing. So I'm going to do that to get a more accurate pattern, and I can so that's 2.258. Okay, cool. So 2.258. What you'll see me do, I think I've used orange here in the past. I'm gonna put in a circle down here, its own circle. Instead of pulling a circle with this radius, I'm just gonna actually do a little side circle here that has a radius of 2.258, I think is what it said. Yeah, there's my circle. So that's going to be a little more accurate than just pulling one off in between these two node points here. So that's what I'm going to do. Sometimes when I do stuff like that, I like to label that I know it's the right radius. So you might see me. You can dimension a radius. It's up here in your dimension area. You got all kinds of stuff you can dimension. I'm going to dimension a radius. Yeah, so however you want to dimension it, there it is. It's a good way to double check that you got the right. This is a radius of 2.258. And now I use that to step off my pattern. I need 12 of those to make up the circumference of the bigger diameter. So let's copy that by its center point. I need 12 of those radiuses is what I need. So, all right, so now that we have that, we're going to copy this from its center point. And here's the difference from the last cone. Last time we just went out to the far outside edge of the cone and stepped this off around that. This time I'm going to be more aware of, to get the right circumference of this, which I've got my circle that represents 1/12 of the circumference here. I'm going to step this off in regards to where these points lie on the grid line that I kind of set up over here. So when I go to drop this circle, I need 12 of these, but I'm going to do it just slightly different than the last cone. So, and I'm just going to start at point 1 where it references that starts on my pattern. So I just follow that around. It's this green line here, and it would be right here. I just determined this yellow line was my place to start my pattern, off the apex to the outside. So that's the start of my pattern. This is kind of point 1 on my pattern right here where I'm hovering over. I'm going to select that point as point 1, and then where it intersects, where this orange circle intersects the white line, is going to be point 2 here. So I'm just kind of stepping this off like point 1, 2, 3 is yellow, 4 is blue, 5 is orange, 6 is light blue, and 7 will be the center point, and then it'll go back around the way. So, and I'll probably make 7 like a yellow or something. It'll be the center. So, but what I mean is, so that I called the start of my pattern and the intersection where the green radius is, or the green arc is position 1. So now where that arc intersects the white line is point 2. Where that new circle intersects the yellow line is point 3. And so I'm just stepping this off down, progressively down this grid system here. So this is the blue, dark blue is point 4. And I'm using these as my center points. And this orange, where orange met orange there, is point 5. And the light blue circle is my number 6 arc, so that's point 6. And now I'm out to the center line, which is point 7 right here. Excuse me, is on the magenta line here, where my pattern is going to repeat itself coming back up the other side. So I told you I kind of like to stop on my centers, and which is going to be the center point of this line here. That's like 6 radiuses, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's that center point of that last circle I dropped. So I'm just going to put a reference center line from here to where it crosses the magenta line. That's going to be half the pattern on the big end. And I'm going to continue copying this this orange circle for the rest of the half of the pattern. So I'm going to copy it by its center point that I dropped last. And so that would be point 7, and then I come back around the other half of the circle, 7, and back up the grid. Light blue is 8, 9 on the orange, 10 on dark blue, and then 11 on yellow, and 12 on white, and then back to point 1. I don't even have to drop another circle because where I just dropped white there is going to be picking up back to point 1 here on the green. So that just essentially locked in, and I can even do this side. This just locked in, and I'm just going to pull this. The pattern kind of ends right here where this intersects. Yeah, right there. And now I can actually go ahead and draw in that polyline. That's kind of the big radius, or I should say the big circumference on the big end, which is 8 and 5/8. So all those lines should kind of, all these segments of this polyline I'm going to draw should equate to 27.0963 in length, give or take a little bit for my drawing error. But so I'm going to start this where I started my pattern, which was point 1 right here. And I'm just going to arc this second point as I come across here. So this is going to go to that position and over to yellow. And from yellow to my dark blue. So I'm going to walk this around. And then back to point 7 right here. And back up to 8 and 9. Then I've got point 10 right here. Point 10. And this is point 11 back to yellow. And to finish off this pattern, it's going to be point 12 right here and back to point 1. So that becomes the bottom circumference there, that part of the pattern. And it will lock in the top. What I'm going to do is I've gone and taken and done another reference circle that is the node points of my top. So I took and figured my 4.5-inch circumference on the top is 14.1372 in circumference. My 4.5-inch diameter equals this circumference. Divided that by 12, came up with this radius circle, 1.1781. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go ahead and trace this around the top in the same manner that I did. I'm gonna start at point 1 up at the top, which is my green. I'm gonna walk the same grid down. So all these intersection points. This is going to give me a more accurate circumference. And so that should intersect, see, this is going to be where it intersects here is 0.7 now, and which is close. This is the center line I drew. This just shows that it does lock in the top. I'm going to go, here's going to be 0.8 out to the light blue, and 0.9 back to orange, and 10 to blue, 11 to yellow there, and 12 is the white one, and then this one should end up at the same point where I ended the last pattern right here, where it intersects with the end of my pattern. So this gives me a more accurate line, I guess, to draw this. I can use the circles like I did below. I can actually, for that matter, I could have then drawn all of my node points back to the apex to kind of, I'm using the circle to kind of create the grid, I guess, on this one. I could use lines too. I could take these lines and I could have drawn them out to the outer circle. But yeah, while I've got this way, I'll just go ahead and connect this now. This is point 1. And I'm just going to arc a second point. These the same way I did the lower circumference. I'm just stepping down where these circles intersect my big circles. Yeah, so there's... just kind of gets this droopy arc here that I'm doing. Just make sure you pick up these points right. Now this is going to be 0.6 here, and back to the middle 0.7, where all that intersects there, and then back up for 8 and 9. There's my blue and my orange, and 10 and 11 should be here and here. And then we'll finish off with 12 and back to point 1 here. So here's point 12 and back to point 1. And then I can actually just shift. If I just put line for line when I'm in a polyline, I can actually connect this back to where this one ended on 1. All right, that's one side, and I just need to draw the 2 on this end together. So yeah, just like that. Now I was able to complete that pattern using 2 circles top and bottom. I could have done this on the round taper cone that's an equal taper. I chose to do it this way, just kind of trying to keep track of my. I'm going to do a polyline edit, trying to keep track of my circumference just a little bit better. This one, I think I've drawn it wrong a couple times actually, taking those orange circles all the way out to the magenta colored line to define a circumference, which is slightly wrong. And so I wanted to follow this grid pattern a little bit better, and I found that this produces a better pattern. So I'm going to join all these together so I can extract them. And that should be, yeah, that didn't join. Let me try again. Just want to join those. This hopefully is connected. Now if I escape, is it all one piece? I must have like whenever I have this issue, I always make sure that I'm like I've taken my, I can see probably what I have done wrong here is that this one doesn't quite intersect. Yeah, it's like it's caught the quadrant of the circle instead of, I think this will now join. I always just check my corners if I can't get my polyline to join. So join this. Now with this, that's the whole object. It should be able to, yeah, there it all comes out now. So now I can make a copy of this piece, pull it out of the messy grid that it is. Maybe I'll pull out the center line with it, and I'm going to pull those by this base point here, the outer point number 7. I'm just going to pull it to the side here. All right, and I might just tuck this in as my center line back to where it intersects the pattern. Yeah, and there's my pattern. So I can do some checks. I want to measure, maybe measure to see how close I come to these circumferences. Let's just do that. One way I can do this, I could just explode this thing that I've just joined now. If I explode that, this becomes little segment pieces between all my arcs and second points. I could actually, I could dimension these maybe with an arc length here, and maybe I'll just do this in white. So let me pull up these dimensions, and let's just total these. So let's do this inside arc. I'm just going to pull all these points, and then maybe I'll add them up on the screen here. So this is just a way to check to see, is my pattern close to the is my pattern close to the circumference? It's a good check because it should be. So I've got all these arc segments here. They're all very close, slightly different as they come around. Should be kind of a uniform pattern from kind of point 1 back to point 1. And so I kind of see that each of my arc segments kind of match each other. That's kind of a good sign. So from center out, it's kind of the same dimensions. Center out, it's kind of the same dimensions. So if I pull up my calculator here on screen and kind of add these up, what do I got? I've got 2.3562, and got a couple of those, and then I've got 2.3590, so I'm going to add a couple of those. Add these up, 3590, yeah. And then I've got, a couple of 2.3639s. Oh, did I miss it? Put backspace here. That was where I was at, plus 2.3639. My calculator isn't the most accurate. .39. My phone calculator is quicker, but this works. So what did I end up with? 141582. So 141582. Maybe what I'm going to do is like see what the difference here is. 1582. So slightly different than here. And that's some drawing error for sure. Let me pull back up my calculator. What's 14? Yeah, it's just me doing a little check here. So I might subtract what the actual, just to see the margin of error here, 141372 minus. I come up with just like 02 in drawing error. That's pretty good. I mean, if I'm drawing that good, if I'm just 200ths off, that's pretty good. You know, 300ths would be a 32nd. Man, if I'm working in 200ths with some welding gaps, I'm doing pretty good. Should be able to not be an issue for my final product. So I can assume that working from that, and then if I pull those same dimensions on the outside, they should be close to that. Hopefully they're within 32nd or so for my drawing error. But if I added all those up, they should equal the bigger circumference. And that's all I wanted to take this drawing to. So that kind of concludes class assignment number 10.